Hi, my name is Sandra Valdez Lopez, and I am a clinical support specialist and a trauma-informed somatics facilitator. Today, I invite you into conversation about mindfulness, one of my favorite life-nourishing practices to support and resource myself daily and in times of stress and challenge. We're having this conversation as part of our Stress Busters series, presenting evidence-based interventions that can help reduce stress, improve health, and build resilience. In this conversation, we recognize that people who have experienced and may be experiencing trauma may have a harder time putting some of the ideas I'm going to talk about into practice. There have been so many challenges and hardships. I invite you and support you in connecting to this material and conversation when it is accessible and right for you. Whatever choices you make today with your presence and your body are supported. You deserve to take your time and trust your intuition about what you need in this moment. I want to pause here next intentionally for a moment of cultural humility. Before Western science called this healing and evidence-based, South Asian and East Asian peoples were accessing and nourishing mindfulness traditions for the purpose of helping their people transcend suffering for over 5,000 years. I enter this conversation with so much gratitude and cultural appreciation for these communities and the ways in which their teachings and practices have transformed and enriched my life. If you hold membership in these communities, I bring these words to you. Thank you for preserving, protecting, and sharing your healing wisdom with our world. I guide us next into a brief personal story of how this practice met me at a juncture in my life when I did not know how to have a body. I'm going to talk about medical challenges for a couple of minutes. So if you'd like to step away from this conversation or fast forward, you are welcome to do so. Perhaps giving yourself a moment to just check in with what would be useful and what is accessible for you in this moment. A few years ago, I found myself in what felt like a very sudden, unexpected storm of chronic illness. I won't travel us into diagnoses or details because there were a few, and the part of the story that is most helpful to offer here actually begins after the 3 years of specialists and ongoing treatments. The part of the story starts when I was pronounced healthy and left with a body that I did not recognize, an energy level that never seemed to be enough for how I wanted to spend my days or connect with loved ones, and a feeling that stress and overwhelm would always be with me. It was in that space and in that context, mindfulness practices helped me greet my body with compassionate curiosity. They gave me a path to slowly and gently accept and eventually befriend what is here. They gave me the language to meet my stress response system with grace and understanding. My body worked so hard during those years of treatment, just as our bodies have worked so hard for us during the pandemic. Mindfulness brought me home to myself, and in coming home here, it also brought me home to all that I hold dear, to important relationships and work I am so privileged to support. I offer this story to you because we each deserve to connect to practices that support us in honoring the multitudes we hold. We deserve to connect to practices that foster resilience and promote our healing and flourishing. We deserve to connect to practices that show us how incredible we are. For many of us, the pandemic has created a different kind of stress, a chronic stress that has been enduring. Because of your roles on the front lines of the pandemic, you have also likely been experiencing additional stress that your amazing, extraordinary bodies cannot process fast enough. Not because you've done something wrong or because your bodies are failing you. This kind of stress, that we've all been managing overworks our body's natural intelligences, affecting how accessible our go-to stress relief strategies are. If your strategies for stress management, coping, and relief have largely felt out of reach this past year, I want you to know you are not alone. That is all of our bodies speaking important truths to us about the impact of this last year, and you do not have to rush to process, reflect, or make meaning around this past year. It's okay to take your time. It's okay to be gentle and kind to yourselves. So what then can we do about this feeling of I just can't seem to get ahead of the overwhelm? What does it mean to get to know our stress response systems? And what does it mean to explore strategies? I invite you to begin here. The California Office of the Surgeon General report on stress and health highlighted the ways that intense, prolonged stress affects our bodies, brains, and behavior. It also said that stress is treatable and presented evidence-based interventions, or stress busters, in 7 areas that can help reduce stress, improve our health, and build resilience. Build that built-in capacity that we all have, our stress response system. There's so much important information in this report, but the piece I invite your attention to now is this. The science tells us that the overwhelm, the chronic stress we feel, is treatable. I reshare here this. Stress and overwhelm do not have to be the story that we live every day. We can find relief. We can find ease. We can find accessible choices, strategies, and practices to build our systems up. And the one that I'm talking to you today about is mindfulness. Mindfulness is an umbrella category full of philosophies, traditions, rituals, and interventions that have been nourished by so many different cultural contexts and groups of people. Mindfulness is the non-judgmental, moment-to-moment awareness that involves our attention, our intention, and a kind attitude. To quote one of my favorite trauma specialists, Luann Davis, mindfulness is your inborn ability to be attentive to what is happening in your body, your heart, and your mind, as well as what is going on around you moment to moment. Here in this space, I invite you to honor both the original context and the research that has come to us from the Western world, giving us the opportunity to celebrate the benefits and gifts of mindfulness practices. Here in this space, I invite you to consider how this practice of guiding your attention to the present moment can perhaps support you in returning you to the people, places, resources, and practices that are available to you right here and right now. Here in this space, I invite you to practice noticing what's here with you right now. Taking a few moments, if it's accessible, to guide your attention, perhaps to your thoughts, perhaps to some sensations in your body, perhaps to your environment, giving yourself a moment to remind yourself that in this moment, right here, right now, you are safe, you are here, you are present, you have options. Over the next couple of minutes, I'm going to give you the opportunity to practice mindfulness through a couple of minutes of invited, totally optional, trauma-sensitive yoga. One of the mindfulness traditions that I personally love practicing and exploring. If you'd like to explore some movement, I invite you to find a form or a shape that feels accessible in your body. If you've been sitting for several hours, you might want to explore standing if it's accessible to you. Or if sitting is most accessible in this moment, Maybe you'd like to bring a pillow or a cushion to prop up behind you because you are deserving of ease and comfort and relief. When you're ready, it might be helpful just to begin to shift in whatever chosen form you've picked, giving yourself a moment to perhaps explore some gentle rocking forward or perhaps some gentle rocking back. Another option you might make here, instead of rocking gently forward and back, might be to explore some circles, perhaps some half circles, or perhaps some full circles in whatever direction you'd like. Inviting your attention, supporting yourself, and guiding your attention to movement that is helpful right now, to movement that is supportive right now. If you've chosen to move, you might continue to explore whatever movement you've chosen, or you might choose to return to center and perhaps explore the option of a different movement. Might be helpful to bring your shoulders up towards your ears in circles, or maybe to shrug them up and bring them down. So one option for additional movement might be to roll your shoulders back or forward, or maybe to bring them up and down. You might continue to explore this movement, or maybe you've decided to come to stillness, come to a moment of practicing some rest. When you're ready, I invite you to return to center, taking all the time you'd like and finding someplace supportive to bring your hands. That might look like alongside your body, or you might want to place them on a surface in front of you, giving yourself a moment, perhaps to return to gratitude, perhaps to return to the recognition of how much strength and courage it takes to show up for ourselves when we are feeling so stressed out and overwhelmed. Perhaps returning to the affirmation of how deserving you are of finding release and renewal at your time, at your own pace. When you're ready, I invite you to find a gaze in your eyes that meets you with tenderness in this moment, that meets you with understanding in this moment. And I offer you these words from Adrienne Maree Brown, with the option of also bringing your hands perhaps to someplace supportive on your body, perhaps your heart, or perhaps another place. Adrienne Maree Brown writes, I touch myself and I remember that before there was harm here, there was miracle. Before there was harm here, there was miracle. When you're ready, taking your time, I invite you to come back to center. And I bring gratitude and appreciation for your taking the time to explore resourcing strategies that meet you and hold you in this moment.